Shabbat Shalom. The words to the opening song can be found on page 86. Hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, shevet achim gam yachad.
Going to bring up Scott Arden from our board just to welcome everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi, and Shabbat Shalom to one and all. So instead of doing announcements at the end of a service, we're experimenting with doing introductions and welcomes at the beginning of the service. So welcome, everybody who is here and everybody who is joining us online. Kolami is the best place to be. If you want to do anything Jewish, do it with Kolami, at least in Tucson. So the way this works is we're trying to put more of a human face to members of lay leadership, clergy, etc., so that instead of a talking head, there's more of a human face. So I'm asked to say a few words just to introduce myself and a little bit about my background. And the kicker will be one magic moment that I share that's happened to me here at Kolami. So Scott Arden, we moved here, my wife Sue and our son and daughter Joshua and Miriam, respectively. We moved here in 2007, and we joined Legacy Temple Emmanuel. Had a wonderful time there, and I was involved in the formation of Kolami Synagogue, and it was a true joy to do that. As a matter of fact, that is my joyous moment, was the time when just a few of us, including former Mayor Jonathan Rothschild and Rabbi Lochheim and Elaine Jones of, at the time, Legacy Or Hadash, came together and we signed the Articles of Incorporation for Kolami Synagogue. It was wonderful. I mean, if this ever turns into a documentary, we're going to have to ask all of you to help us choose the right theme music, but just think of a warm, literally, Tucson warm afternoon on a Sunday, and just a spirit of connection and a spirit of wonder at what we're creating together that surrounded it. So thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to bring Bill and Bonnie Jacobson to the front to light the Shabbos candles in honor of a wonderful wedding anniversary.
We're on page 4. In the beginning there was darkness, and the Spirit of God hovered over the darkness.
For some, darkness is a place of fear and of the unknown. For us, it is from darkness
The
that
work
the work
of creation begins.
Then God created light, and the work of creation was begun.
As we kindle the Sabbath lights, we remember the majesty of creation and rejoice in our ability to be one with creation.
Light is the symbol of warmth and unity. It binds us together with Jews of all lands who are kindling the Sabbath lights.
These Sabbath candles give light to all who behold them. So may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
We light these candles to welcome the sacred day of joy and rest. As the candlelight illuminates us, we pray that we too may become a light in the darkness.
We
Pray for the spiritual well-being of our families, friends, congregation, community, and world. With the lighting of these candles, we proclaim this space holy, and we proclaim this time holy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Our next piece is a combination of two psalms, the one on page 5 at the bottom and on page 6. And if you are familiar with the tune, please sing with us. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai, lechu neranena l'Adonai, naria letzuri sheinu, lechu neranena
So I want to take a few minutes to reflect on this new prayer book we finally published after 20 years. We introduced it last week, and I want to share a few brief words, and Kathleen Sabota wants to share a few of her thoughts on how important this is for our community here at Kolami. So let me start off by saying that in October 1846, Max Lilienthal, who at that time was the chief rabbi of not one, not two, but 3 German synagogues in New York City, Anshe Chesed, Shari Hashamayim, and Rodef Sholem, he formed a Beit Din, a collection of rabbis, and among them was Isaac Mayer Wise, who proposed at that time to have a unifying prayer book to unify the Reform movement in America called Minhag America, which means the practice of America, based on what he said was halakha and the demands of modern times. So I cannot say with certainty that this new prayer book, Song of the Soul, is based on halakha, just as this predecessor prayer book was in 1846. But for all those who labored to create this prayer book, I can affirm today that it was a response that embraced modern times. And so, as we've stated in the introduction to this prayer book, this is to welcome souls arriving on Shabbat, assisting those souls to open the veils of a connection to God, to lift one's spirits from the pit, and provide a guide on our journeys as we travel outside of this sacred space. So I personally want to take a moment to express my gratitude to the many hands who brought forth this prayer book as an affirmation of our faith, an expression of the diversity of those whose voices we heard when we created this prayer book. And I owe a debt of gratitude to those who sit on the bima tonight, our clergy, who gave voice to these words and to the music contained herein. We're most indebted to Sarah Bolt and to Betsy Sandlin, who could not be here this evening. She is at a bar mitzvah of a family member, who took all the recommendations, all the late edits, all the rabbinic Lockheim prerogatives, and translated them into a sacred book that you hold in your hands this evening. So I want to stop for a moment, and I want to have Kathy Lynn Sabota come forward. She chaired both the Ritual Committee at Or Kadash and co-chaired the Sacred Living Committee along with Emily Joseph and Amy Ruskin in the final production of this book. Oh, you can do that. I was going to bring you high. Oh, maybe not. See, this is why we need a railing. You can ramp down.
This is a little more personal reflection of this prayer book. Or Hadash's Ritual Committee would meet on the first Tuesday of each month at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom at Alvernon. I would write the meeting's agenda on the whiteboard, and more times than not, the final item would be prayer book. Working on the prayer book was a community experience. We would read the prayers aloud, discuss, question, and listen to everyone's comments. And then we would read it aloud again to listen to the rhythm. There were many versions that we piloted. We used them, we reprinted them. We took comments from congregants and made more changes around that table in that boardroom. It took a long time, but let me assure you that every word in every prayer has been thoughtfully chosen with kavanah. This book is the product of each and every member of the Ritual Committee who sat around that table, whether it was for one meeting, a year, 5 years, 10 years. I want to thank them all. But with every project, there are those who do more, the heavy lifters, so to speak, who took our words and made them appear on the page, not by magic, but by hard and intensely detailed work. I want to thank Sarah Bolt, Betsy Sandlin, Rabbi Tom Lockheim, Cantor Cohen, and over this last year, Rabbi Cohen. During all those years of working on words, we would imagine the book itself, a hardcover, something you could hold in one hand. Images that captured the beauty of the Arizona desert. Thank you, Howard. And all of that was made possible by the generosity of the Hazen family. Thank you. So here it is. Isn't it beautiful? My greatest hope is that this Siddur, by being part of Kol Ami's Shabbats, that the words, the rhythms, these songs we all wrote together will find a place in your heart and in your soul. Thank you.
Second. So again, a special thanks to the Hazen family, Susan, David, Ashley, whose generosity made the printing of Shir Hanshama possible. Susie approached me some time ago and asked me what enterprise at Or Kadash could she support for her family and make a donation in memory of Morris Hazen and Bucky Hazen. And I immediately knew it was the Song of the Soul, which quite literally embodied the spirit of that congregation. Susie, David, and Ashley, thank you so much. Our hope is that this embodies the spirit of Kol Ami as well. So there is much to tell, but let us leave that for another time and for your own spiritual discovery in this book. But I did ask Howard Paley to enlighten me or re-enlighten me as to something that is unusual in a prayer book, and that is photographs that I felt were so important to not only embody our presence here in this desert and this spiritual place of Tucson, but to place these photographs in here in a particular place so that we can be inspired not only by the words, but by the images that Howard created. And so on the front cover we have, in Howard's words, this sunset photograph was taken from Mount Lemmon Highway at Manzanita Vista, looking down the canyon toward the city of Tucson. The billowing clouds touched with sunlight and the obscured, rugged landscape below create a very spiritual scene filled with the anticipation and wonder. I imagine, said Howard, Moses emerging from the midst, carrying the 10 Commandments at any moment. And then on the page inside, preceding page 1, so if you find page 1, go back. So this is a saguaro at sunset. So this saguaro, Howard tells us, this saguaro sunset photograph was taken below the Babad Doag parking area from the Mount Lemmon Highway, looking toward the Tucson Mountains. It is one of my all-time favorite photographs, and this landscape captures the iconic spirit of the desert, the heat, the energy, and the power of the setting sun. And then finally, on page 27, it is unmarked, so you have to find page 28 and turn back. I discussed with the editor what to paginate and what not to. We were very precise in what we did. So this is entitled Sunbeams at Sunrise. So this sunrise photograph was taken from Houghton Road, looking toward the Tenca Verde Mountains above Agua Caliente. It is dedicated to our friend Mitch Dorset. I can almost not read this. So this was taken the morning after the day we lost Mitch. The sunbeams and radiance of this photograph capture his spirit. And so I want to just end my remarks about the prayer book this evening with you to turn to page 60 for the communal prayer. I know Kathy Lynn is cringing over there, maybe Emily too. So no other prayer in this prayer book evoked more emotion, more stress, and more distress than the words on this page. My personal efforts of composition, decompensation, and poetry are most evident on this page. I wanted this to express the important passion I have for this country and our leaders. And when it came to the paragraph, for Israel and the world, this is the paragraph that took the most time, the most discussion, listening, and distress. So for Israel and the world, I and our work group wanted the expression about Israel to express truth, though it is painful at times to express that truth out loud. My desire is that this page represents our diversity, unified not in a promise, but rather in a hope that requires our efforts to work toward that kind of promise. We're going to continue our service now with Lecha Dodi on page 8. Page 8.
Seated on page 9, a psalm, a song for Shabbat, 'Tis good to give thanks to Adonai, to sing praises to your name, O Most High.
To sing of your kindness in the morning and of your faithfulness each night.
With a 10-string harp, with voice and lyre together.
Your works bring me joy, O God. I shout for joy at your handiwork.
Everything you've made is great. Every thought of yours is profound.
The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon.
Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God.
In old age, they will still produce fruit. They will be green and fresh, as if to declare,
Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no wrong.
we're at the top of page 9.
Page 11. What was but moments ago the substance of our life has now become memory. What we did must now be woven into what we are. For on this day we should not do but be. We are to walk the path of our humanity, no longer ride unseeing through a world we do not touch and only vaguely sense. This is what Shabbat must be for us, not to tear the world apart, not to wrestle with time, but to let warmth and care and light come forth from deep within ourselves.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei b'chayechom u'vyomechom u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman kari, veimeru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach, leolam u'olmei olmaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh, v'yitala, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, גם אירם ועמה, ואמרו Amen. Please rise. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך, המבורך לעולם ועד.
Flip to page 12. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv haravim, b'chokhmah poteach sha'arim, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמורותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב והרבים. We continue together the foot of 13. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and commandments, judgments and laws. Therefore, eternal our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your teachings. We will rejoice in your Torah and your mitzvot forever, for they are our life and the length of our days, and we will meditate on them day and night. May we always be aware of your love for us. We praise you, Adonai, who shows love to your people Israel and all the world.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shem kevod mahuto, le'olam
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננת לבביך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Middle of 15. All this we hold to be true and sure. You alone are our God, and we, Israel, are called to your service.
We are witnesses and participants in God's covenant for justice and peace.
You do wonders without number, marvels that pass our understanding.
You keep our feet from faltering. You help us survive our daily struggles.
You did wonders for us in the land of Egypt, miracles and marvels in the land of Pharaoh.
We are free to lift up the fallen and bring healing to those suffering in our midst.
When Moses, Miriam, and the people stood at the shore of Freedom's Sea, they sang this song to you with great joy.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norat tehilot, oseh feleh, norat tehilot, oseh feleh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norat tehilot, oseh feleh, norat tehilot, oseh feleh. Malchutecha rauvanecha, מוקי הים לפני משה, זה אלינו ואמרו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גא ישראל. השיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, העמידנו מלכנו לחיים. השיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, העמידנו מלכנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ושמור צאתנו ובואנו, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ושמור צאתנו ובואנו. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני,
Sabbath brings us back to our inner true selves, to the divine energy within and around us. The Sabbath reminds us of our faith, our people, and our history. The Sabbath allows our divine consciousness room to breathe. Now, when we sing Vishamru, you'll notice there might be a couple of people who, during the chorus, the refrain, stand up and twist around. Now, let me just be clear what the reason is. Very deep, important reason. The rabbinic idea is that, thank you, Emily. The rabbinic idea is that if all the Jews keep the Sabbath for 2 Sabbaths in a row, then Messiah will come, a time of total peace, perfection, without poverty, war, or hunger. Now, it's a lot of work to do that. We have our small-scale version of this. If all the Jews twist around during Vishamru, then maybe we'll bring Messiah a little bit further. So please help us with that lofty aim.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפל, שבת וינפל, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Page 18, please rise for the Amida.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Tomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מכפל חיים בחסד, מחיי חיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בלי שני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue silently through page 24, either standing or sitting.
If you're the online part of our community, now would be the moment to send JJ the names of your loved ones who are in need of extra support for our healing prayer. Those recently added to our list are Kerry Fishman, Rachamim Ben Sarah, Janet Kellingsberg, Peggy Hitchcock, Nicolette Gudenkauf, and Melissa Pozes. We do have some names already from the online part of our community. Billy, Marjorie Adler, and Mary Coolbo. Is there anyone here in the room who wants to add a name for healing? Thank you. Thank you.
Sarah Mirsky and David Wing.
Jane Myerson, Bob Balkoff.
Robert Dernfeld?
We think of them, invite you to rise if that is your custom, as we sing the healing prayer on page 25.
Please be seated.
Okay.
So as my days are nearing, everyone wonders, Rabbi, is this your last Shabbat? Aren't you done yet? And there are all these questions that are being asked of me, and I have to keep refuting them. June 21st is my last work day. So I'm still working till then, although we have a upcoming trip with members of our community who are here tonight and those who are joining us by Zoom to the Holy Land, to Israel. I want to share with you two stories. One of them is true, the other one may be true. So there were two young brothers, one 4 and one 6 years old, and they were given the privilege or the opportunity to spend the night at their grandmother's house, and because their parents were out on date night, so they got to spend the evening at their grandparents' house. And it was getting late, and their grandmother said, okay, the two of you go up to bed, and don't forget that before you go to sleep, you need to say your prayers. So they dutifully went upstairs, they brushed their teeth, they got ready for bed, they dropped to their knees. And one of the brothers yelled out, God, I want a bicycle! God, I want a new PlayStation! And his brother looked at him, he says, why are you yelling? He says, God's not deaf. And he said, yeah, but Grandma is. So the other story, when Marcia and I were in Kansas City, we had 2 years, and that was enough. And we started applying to different congregations. And before I heard about Temple Emmanuel, there was a southern congregation that I was interested in. The senior rabbi was interested in me. And we had a lovely interview. I had a lovely interview with the board and with the rabbi. And then in a private moment with the rabbi, he asked me about my senior rabbi. And he says, well, there's nothing wrong with Rabbi Zedek. He's a lovely guy. He says, well, he gave you a peculiar recommendation. And I said, what was it? He said, Rabbi Lockheim is a good rabbi, but he talks about God a lot. So I just want to share with you a notion, hopefully briefly, something I wrote about in my rabbinic journal, the CCR journal in 2016, about a confusion that I think a lot of people have about God. And I see this all the time in Torah study, both on Tuesday and Saturday. And I try and teach our members a little bit out of a binary idea about who God is and how God is represented in our lives today. And one of the things that they struggle with, especially the last few weeks, we've read about the death of Nadav and Abihu, and this comes up every year, Aaron's two sons, who offer an alien fire according to the text, and for whatever reason, God consumes them, and they're completely consumed by fire, and they die. Why would God do this for two people who are trying to act righteously and who have a devotion to God, even though they're maybe providing a ritual that is a little bit unusual? And so you would think that if you're devoted to God, if you're a righteous person, why would you fall before your enemies if you've done nothing wrong? Why would you be punished? And we ask this sort of question all the time. So let me give you a couple answers. One is biblical, and the other one's about Rabbi Lockheim. So the biblical one is one where we truly understand. It's the story of Joseph. Joseph was given a vision by God that he was going to rule over his brothers, maybe rule over a nation. He had this dream, this vision that was provided to him by God. And his brothers wanted to deny him of this. And they, in fact, it seemed, did. He approached them and they threw him into a pit, and they were even talking about killing him. And then the Ishmaelites came along, and they decided to sell him into slavery. And they put blood on his multicolored jacket and tell their dad that he had died by some wild beast. So forget about the lie and forget what about the brothers did. Here he has a vision from God. God spoke to him and said, you're going to do this. And his brothers throw him to a pit. He's sold up into slavery. He meets a wonderful leader in Egypt, Potiphar, and is his servant for a while until something occurs, and now he's thrown into prison. So wouldn't you become a little bit discouraged and wonder, where is God? Where is God? What have I done wrong? What have I done to deserve this? And yet, the entire time, and by the way, the entire time that it took from the time he was thrown into the pit, by the time Pharaoh came along and was told, there's this guy who's got this magic power to read, the tea leaves, if you will, and get Egypt out of this dilemma and translate your dreams. The period between the pit and Joseph coming out of prison was 13 years. So, and what happens to him after 13 years? He's given a robe of dignity and authority, and he rules over Egypt, and he saves Egypt. And he also saves his brothers later on in the story. So what does this tell us? Did God have anything to do with him being thrown into a pit, for him being in prison for 13 years? What God provided for him was a vision of some possibility that he could do. And what happened in that 13-year period was a temporary obstruction in that path toward that vision. Now, I'm hoping that whatever your vision is and what happens in your life, whenever obstacles come in front of you, that it is only temporary and it doesn't take 13 years to get from that obstacle to where you're trying to get. And we look at other things as well, and we oftentimes go, oh, it's God's will. So, God's will, your cancer, your hangnail, the way others treat you, it's God's will. And this assumes that everything from a hangover to some disease or abuse from other people is the will of God. And if that's true, then God must be capricious, vindictive, and reprehensible. And if that were true, then we would never be able to find out what a virus is, antibiotics, and medicine to cure the diseases that ail you. Because if we did that, wouldn't that be an affront to God? If God has given you these diseases and ailments and things that befall you, then we shouldn't be able to find the cures, and yet we do. So whatever befalls you is not the will of God. And then I hear oftentimes God's ways are mysterious. Well, listen. Wait. All right, I'm 66. Some of you are younger. But those of us who are a little bit older, there are a lot of mysteries in the world. We don't have to attribute them to God. But we know that as we go through life, there are things we just don't know the answers to. But that doesn't mean that we can't move forward in our life and be guided by the purpose and mission in our life and with the help of others. So even if there are mysteries in life, we don't have to attribute them to God. We just don't have to be disenfranchised by them, and also not being able to have the power to overcome the things that are befalling us. The other thing, which is both personal and something that we say all the time to others, time heals all wounds. So, does it? No. Do you want it to? So I have, I've officiated over my 40 years in the rabbinate at hundreds of funerals. And the wound that tears at the heart of those who are bereaved is terrible. It's heart-wrenching, and that's why we call it that. And yet, none of us who've suffered any sort of loss like that ever wants that wound to heal. Because it means that that person whom we loved and cared for so much and cared for us, has lost its meaning. And in fact, is what I've said at funerals oftentimes, we don't want that wound to heal. We want it to be shaped around how we live our life. We embrace it. We make it part of who we are. And I remember a number of years ago, I was in Palm Springs without Marcia, and I went over to Debbie Friedman's mother's home, and Debbie was there performing for 150 rabbis at our convention. And I was able to spend a little time with her, and for whatever reason, she turned to me and she said, "Tom, are you afraid of dying?" And with tears in my eyes, I looked at her and I said, "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of Marcia dying." So even before, I could even have that wound of loss, I understand what that wound means and how important it is, because it reflects a devotion that she has for me and I have for her. So we don't ever want that for time to heal these wounds. Friends, I don't know a lot about God after 40 years, but I do know this. When Temple Emmanuel decided to let me go, it's fine. Okay. Over 30 years ago, I contracted a terrible food allergy to preservatives, and I'm not suggesting a causative relationship. It's just something that happened to me. And for months and months, I had hives on my hands, on the bottoms of my feet, on my face, inside my body. And it was excruciatingly painful. And one night I remember I was alone in my bedroom and with hives on my hands and hives on the bottom of my feet, I could barely walk. I collapsed to the floor, and for the first time and the only time, I cried out, "Why, God, have you done this to me?" And on my knees, I was on my knees, but for a moment, and I heard a voice as clear as any I've ever heard, and it simply said, "Get up." Now, I'd never heard of chapter 7, verse 8 of the book of Micah. But in it, Micah says, "Do not rejoice over me, my enemy, when I fall, for I will arise." So we will fall from time to time. It's not God's fault. It's not someone else's fault. There is an obstruction in our way. We are going to be defeated from time to time, but that will pass. It's only for a moment, and we, as Micah says, will rise again. And so I got up in that moment, and I knew what to do, and I've served this community devotedly for the next 30 years with ever asking about why, the will, or the mystery. Amen.
So, Rabbi Lochai, Marsha, Cantor Cohen, word on the street is that you're going to Israel. The rumor is you're taking a bunch of people with you. Okay, so listen, it's a great, great privilege to go to the land, and we want anybody, and also at home, if you are part of that group, we'd like you to stand wherever you are to offer you a special blessing that you should go in peace and return to us in peace.
May you be blessed as you go on your way. May you be guided in peace. May you be blessed with health and joy. May this be your blessing. Amen. 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 May this be your blessing. Amen. 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 May this be your blessing. Amen.
Join in with the second verse, 95.
May you be sheltered by the wings of peace. May you be kept in safety and love. May grace and compassion find their way into your souls. May this be your blessing. Amen.
Sing amen together.
Amen. Amen. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen.
I'm so happy that you're doing that and you're going. I'm going to count the Omer now. Rabbi, is it you or me?
I owe you or the Omer? You want to do the blessing first? Oh, do the teaching? Okay. So today's the 37th day of the Omer, which is discipline of commitment. So you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit. The sages teach us that we reside within our own 4 L's, the letter L's. And so if you take the L's, place them around you, it becomes a square, about a 5-foot square I want you to imagine with those L's. So this is our personal space. And within it, we are sovereign, but outside that area is public territory where the rights of all the other people must be respected. So perhaps this is why in the generations past that Jews could live together in crowded ghettos, existing together in relative peace. So the story is told of a man who complained to his rabbi, "The people in our congregation are always walking all over me." And the rabbi responded, "Perhaps if you did not spread yourself all over the place, you would not be stepped on." So even in moments of darkness, let us trust the light that exists in our own personal space. Even when that light barely flickers, there is still enough energy to spark a flame. When those closest desert you, understand that in your life you are living the best life possible. Be disciplined in what you need to heal the hurt. Be committed to no longer be the victim. Rather be the person of peace, of love and purpose. Live each day, cherish your heart, and dwelling within your 4 L's, leave room for others to share your neighborhood.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom shiv'a u'shloshim yom, shehem chamisha shavuot u'shnei yamim la'omer. Today is the 37th day, making 5 weeks and 2 days of the Omer.
So those who are at home, yep. So those who are at home, if you have names for our Kaddish list, you can send those to JJ or in whatever platform you are on. We're continuing with the Aleinu now on page 64. Page 64, please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei kedula liotzer b'reishit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol hamona, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu v'ne'emar haya Adonai lemelech ha'oretz vayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Please be seated as we take a few moments of reflection before the reading of the Kaddish. For those who are here in the sanctuary, we have a special ritual if you would like to partake in it. And that is, if you're saying Kaddish for a loved one this evening, you may wish to step forward and place a pebble that is on that table into your hand and symbolically feel the impact of that pebble on your hand as reflecting the impact that that person had on your life and that it will not be forgotten. And then you can place the pebble on the table. So anyone who would like to rise up and do that, you may. So at this time, we recall Phyllis Gewurtzman, who is Bob's sister who died this week, and arrangements are being made for her funeral. We also recall those who were laid to rest in the past 30 days, and when you hear the name of your loved one mentioned, we ask you to please rise and remain standing. Karen Skolnick, my kid's preschool teacher, Bob Booth, Ron Isaacs, Mickey Schulman, Esther Goodman, and Betty Cornell. We link their names with those who died this season in years past: Jeanette Benjamin, Michael Burke, Gertrude Breton, Keith Brown, Mitchell Brown, Bessie Chernin, Noah Cohen, Merrick Demashik, Abraham Duncan, Dale Elkins, Pearl Feld, Henry Feld, Sidney Gilberg, Marvin Goldberg, Florence Goodman, Stephen J. Gould, Hyman Greenberg, Reb Guillot, Kenneth Hartman, Trung Hua, Jim Ivers, Jacob Jacobson, Barney Jaffe, Ida Kaplan, Irving Krantz, Burton Crone, Robert Leff, Warren Markovitz, Milton Marks, Herbert Ostman, Roger Posen, Elmer Present, Selma Gilbert Rabin, Leonard Rosenzweig, Barry Sack, Albert Sarney, Leonard Schwartz, Leela Schallenberger, Edna Shapiro, Louis Schenkero, Sig Smith, Lester Strong, Solomon Waldman, Millie Waxler, Douglas Weidman, Robert Weiss, Kurt Weiss, Joseph G. Weidman, Bess Wildman, Emil Winkler. And are there any in the sanctuary who is saying Kaddish for a loved one this weekend for someone who was not mentioned? You can remain standing. It's okay. Anyone else? Yes. Thank you. So we ask our community to please rise and join these loved ones as we read the Kaddish together on page 68. Page 68. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlik malchutei. V'chayechon of yomechon. Chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. V'agala b'zman kariv yamru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yatadar, v'yatalev, v'yatalal, shmei tikudasha brechu. Le'elo min kol birkata v'shirata, tushvachata v'nechamata, damiram v'alma v'yamru, amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yamru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol Yisrael tevel, v'yamru, amen.
Ve'imru, 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 amen. Ve'imru, 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 amen. You can be seated. Our closing song is a reprise from last week in honor of Rabbi Lockheim and his retirement. Aseh lecha Rav, find yourself a friend. Or you've got a friend. No. The words.
Now, as we bring the service to an end, just a note, one announcement, practical one, the bereavement group on Tuesday at 11 a.m. And I'll let you into a fantastic secret. There's cake in that there room, okay? Why is there cake? Because of birthdays and anniversaries. So if anybody's celebrating one, either at home or here, then please rise before we say Shechianu, so I can give you a special birthday anniversary blessing. And the reason that the other folks sitting down, they're getting cake is because of these people. So you've got to really, really say thank you later. But we say, Eternal God, source of all life, may you have endless days in the sun, birthdays and anniversaries, surrounded by friends, family, and loved ones. On those days, may you look back on countless wonderful achievements. And whenever sorrow comes to you, may you be surrounded by love, and may the wishes of your heart and soul always come to fruition. Let us say Amen, and Shechianu. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
I want to thank the choir. Thank you. Yeah. And Chris. Whoa. I didn't want